and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. What profit has the worker from that in which he labours? I have seen the God-given task with which the sons of men are to be occupied. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity in their hearts, except that no one can find out the work that God does from beginning to end. I know that nothing is better for them than to rejoice and to do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labour. It is the gift of God. I know that whatever God does, it shall be forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing taken away from it. God does it that men should fear him. I don't know how many of you know pop groups. I know some of you are a little bit young to remember a group called the Birds. Some of you are, but some of you are. Now the Birds wrote a song called Turn, Turn, Turn. Now, it comes from the Bible, this song. But why would they choose to use Ecclesiastes? I won't sing it, so don't worry. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, time to plant, time to reap, time to kill, time to heal, time to laugh, time to eat, to everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And there is. The big problem is God sets the time. Not us. He does it. And I'm almost going to throw these papers away. One of the big problems we've got is about the time that we have. You've probably heard about this one before. The bank calls you up on a Friday afternoon and it tells you that someone is going to be really nice to you and give you a deposit each day of 886,400 pennies starting on Monday morning. So that is £864 a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year onwards. But there's one stipulation. You have to spend all that money that day. No balance is going to be carried over to the next day. Each evening, whatever sum is left in your account, the bank will take away. So you start thinking about 864 times 7 is over £6,000 a week. Almost £350,000 a year that you could spend if you were really diligent. But remember, what you don't spend is forfeited. Sounds good? Well, let's stop pretending and let's get a bit serious. Every morning, somebody who loves you ever so much, deposits into your account of time 86,400 seconds every day. 1,440 minutes. And the same stipulation applies. Nothing is carried over to the next day. So whatever seconds you don't use is gone forever. There's no such thing as a 26-hour day, although an awful lot of people would love to have it. Somebody once said life is a coin. You can spend it any way you want, but you spend it only once. We all are given time at the same level. A time to do and a time not to do. And we all get the same amount, whether we're penniless or the richest person on earth. Whether we're old or whether we're young. Each day we get the same time given to us. And time is so important to us. We say, what time does the meeting start? And what time does the meeting end? Which quite often is more important. Or, I don't have time for that. I haven't got much time at the moment. Don't waste your time on that. You know it's time to go. Well, is it? In our text, Solomon saw something that was above man. A God who was in control of time and who balanced all our life's experience. But one of the things we really need to do to be able to work out how we deal with time is to remember one thing, and that is the end of time. Not the end of time as in Revelation, but the end of time as in my death. Because until we really look at our death, we won't look at how we live our life. When Michael Jordan retired from the NBA, he said, "I have got nothing left to prove." But what was he most proud of? He was so proud that his father lived long enough to see his last game in the NBA. Because his father died shortly after he retired. Apparently, death really got hold of Michael's attention. My brother died 3 years ago. He suffered with cancer for 10 years. And they cut him apart left, right and centre. And after 10 years, he was declared free of cancer. And he lived for another 4 years before he died of a heart attack. He died of the third heart attack, and he was in hospital. And he had plenty of time to think about his death. And we spent a long time working out what his funeral was going to be like. I was taking it up in Manchester. And 2 or 3 people came up to me afterwards and said about the funeral, "I have never laughed so much in a funeral before." I didn't know you could. And my comment was, the laughter in the funeral was because my brother was a comic. Not in profession, but he just was a comic. And he was determined that people would realise where he had gone. And the fact that he was there laughing at us down here. Because he said, it wasn't really until the doctor said after his first heart attack, you haven't got long to live, that he suddenly realised what life meant and all the things he hadn't done, he should have done. The wasted time. I don't want you to have a heart attack to realise what life today should be about. In the prayer meeting that we just had in there, this young lady here said she hoped God would give me a word that maybe change what I was going to say. He's done it. You all know we haven't got a vicar over there, yes? David left us in May. Now the Anglican Church works at a tremendous speed to get a new vicar in. We had to get the profile done, and all 3 parishes had to put an input in and get it all sorted. After that, we then had to, believe it or believe it not, produce a vision for what we wanted the church to do. And all 3 parishes had an input to that. Now, you know when one person's doing something, you go at a certain speed. When 2, you go half as fast. When 3, you go a third as fast. So we started this in June. And this was finished and sent to the diocese on the 3rd of December. It came back on the 20th, okay. And last Friday, we put an advert in the Church Times for a new vicar. So that's happened. Closing date, 14th of February. Interviews in the middle of March. And then if we decide you're the one, it's going to be another 3 months because he's got to give 3 months' notice, or she's got to give 3 months' notice. And that brings us to April, May, June. Don't really want to move now because the kids are in school. So we're looking at August before we get a new vicar. But the great thing is, as I commented on, we normally ask for somebody who is a pastoral person, who will look after the parish and all that. If you have a chance, look on the website of the Church Times. And I think it's in the second pile that the advert for that comes. And it says, we want a spirit-filled person. Chris said to me in the meeting we had in the week, you really got into that. I said, I had nothing at all to do with it. But just think of this. There's a great time coming forward. And it's got nothing to do with Brexit. It's a great time of a new bod over there, hopefully spirit-filled, who wants to bring God to this place. Now, just think of you and them working together as one.
Amen.
What would it do to this place? Has anybody got a vision for what it would do to this place?
Set it on fire.
It really would set it on fire. But it would make these people out here realise that people in here have got something relevant to them. I don't know how many of you know Willow Creek. Willow Creek Church in Chicago. The church I was in Surrey was linked with Willow Creek, and I went across there. It's absolutely huge. I mean, they get, I think it's 25,000 at the weekend. But that's not what I'm interested in. I went over for a conference, and we went into the middle of Chicago to have a meal in the steakhouse. And the waitress came up, and we ordered, and she said immediately, "Oh, you're English!" So I said, "Yes." "What are you doing here?" So I said, "Over at the Willow Creek Conference." "Oh, it's a fantastic church." So we said, "You go?" "No, don't go to church at all. But Willow Creek is a fantastic..." "You ask any of them here." That church absolutely impinged on Chicago. Wherever we went in Chicago, they all thought Willow Creek was the bee's knees. It's helped so many people. That's what could happen in this place if that occurred. It's like, I quite often preach on a book by John Ortberg called If You Want to Walk on Water, You've Actually Got to Get Out of the Boat. Because that's a namesake of mine who did it. Everybody says, Peter failed. They always think of him as failing. But you see, not only did he walk on water once, he walked on water twice. Because he walked out there, started to sink, and walked back with Jesus. And to do anything really encouraging, you've got to be prepared to do something silly. In fact, stupid, because walking on water is more than silly. It's absolutely stupid. And one thing I go for quite a lot when I preach about in all three churches, how do you spell faith? How do you spell faith? I spell it R-I-S-K. If you have faith, you've got to take the risk. Peter did. And if you look at all the disciples, the ones that went off Thomas, they took phenomenal risks. But how often do we take risks? And it is pertinent to this, because if you don't take risks, the time, the seconds you've got, you're wasting. You really do need to step out and be daft. You wouldn't believe it, but I'm very shy. True. All my friends up north, when I became a vicar, said, "You?" Not because of religion and all that, but you wouldn't stand in front of a crowd and preach. And I said, "No, I won't." "He will, because I wore a collar then." And I went visiting. The collar went visiting, not me. But because he said, "Do it," I thought, it took him 7 years to convince me, but I did it. And a friend of mine said, 86, 87, "I bet you never thought you'd be doing this." As I stood in front of 1,100 people and led worship just outside Alton in a big gym, school gym. They had a mission there, and that's what came. And it changed Alton. Because one person took a risk. Not me. See, Alton Dingley is very, very Catholic. Anglo-Catholic. They don't like evangelical people. Why they put up with me, I don't know. But we had Langham Place do a mission to the deanery. And all the Catholic Catholic churches in that place there were astounded at how many new people they got in church because these evangelicals took a risk and stepped out in a very Catholic place that didn't really like it. And I stop and think, you look at Martock. Where's all the work being done in Martock? Really? In the middle. Where's all the work needed to be done in Martock? That end and that end. So why don't we take a risk and do it? Because the powers that be will not let us. Are they more powerful than him? Is it time to think about what we're going to do next and where we're going to go? I've got to find out where I was up to. There was a minister, pastor. He retired, not retired, he resigned. And he went to work as an undertaker. And somebody said, why did you retire and go to an undertaker? He said, well, I spent 4 years trying to straighten Sarah out and couldn't. I then spent 3 years trying to straighten Philip out, and I couldn't. Couldn't get them straight at all. Now when I straighten somebody out, they stay straight. What we need to do is to straighten ourselves out. And I know it may be a bit to work together really closely because we've got belief differences and all the rest of it. But when you stop and think about it all, how much different are your beliefs than their beliefs? See, I wear a tie even over there. I don't wear a dog collar. I haven't worn a dog collar for about 30 years. They accept it. They like roads and all the rest of it, yeah? You're not into that, are you? Why not? We see twice a month, they don't wear robes over there. Do you know that? On the second Sunday, they have a family service, no robes. On the fourth Sunday, they have a praise service, no robes. So what's the difference? You said, look at him, dressed up. I started wearing clothes when I was, new. When I was about 2. When I was about 7 or 8, I wore my best suit to church. Because of one thing. I wanted to be really presentable before God. That's all the robes over there are, to be really presentable to God. But I have attended church twice with my father in an oily boiler suit. Because we just repaired the boiler. Doesn't matter what you wear. It's what you wear inside. And the time that we've got to think about is now. What are we going to do now? The next time we've got scheduled to work together is, any idea? Easter. In the precinct. And Chris and Philip and I were talking about how we were going to do a joint thing in there. Now, normally you hand cards out and chat to people and all the rest of it. I'm not going to say what's going to happen, but it's going to be different. And he's going to be coming to you to see what you can do differently. We may change the way we do the walk through the village, because people get really uptight about blocking the road. But we're still going to do a walk. But we've got to look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. To say, there is a time to change and a time to be the same. I know we're coming to a time of change. Well, we are in the country. So seeing there's a big change coming on in the country, why can't we do a big change here? Life goes on. Slowly, but surely. And one thing we've got to remember is the difference between them and us. And there is a big difference between them and us. Eternity to the godly is a day with no sunset. Eternity to the wicked is a night that has no sunrise. It's forever dark. And what we need to do is to bring light to their darkness. So it's a time to light a candle. And a time to set out into the hurricane with that candle and keep it alight. So, what are you going to do with your bank account? How are you going to use your bank account? It's all up to you. Chris said I had to speak for 40 minutes. Then he changed his mind because he said, it's communion. It's going to be 10. So I said, I never preached less than 20. I don't know how long I've been going, but I think it's time.